Well, welcome back, and we have a very special guest today, one that I've been looking forward to talking to for quite some time. Brenda Elliott's with us today, and she's co-authored a book that we've been talking about, Impeachable Offenses. She's co-authored a book with Aaron Klein. She is an award-winning historian, researcher, New York best-selling author, and she's a blogger, and she's gotten part of this book, in authoring this book, which I think is just incredible. So, Brenda, thank you so much for giving us some of your time today.
You're welcome.
Nice to have you. Well, you know, I think we've all watched with great curiosity. Does the president have all the powers that he seems to be waving around and making changes, and then even in some cases bypassing Congress? And we're very concerned about this, and I know you are too. That becomes the basis of your book. Is it all about abuse of powers?
Well, of course, you know, we can turn to a couple of authorities that people are familiar with. One is Charles Krauthammer, and the other is George Will. And both of them, almost simultaneously, we have to assume they're not sharing their information, but they both said, and this is the whole crux of the matter, that no chief executive in the White House has the authority to rewrite law. And that starts with the Constitution and every other piece of legislation that is passed by Congress. That is not the president's role or any of his departments, except like the EPA or Department of Homeland Security or any other agency. It's not their role or their right to rewrite the law.
Well, and yet he seems to be doing it. He seems to be I would say governing outside of the law. He's almost imperialistic in what he's doing. And I know that you write about high crimes, misdemeanors, and other offenses. Let's start taking on a few of these. Where do you start?
Well, let's go look at immigration, because regardless of what's going on in Syria right now, when something's going on that's very visible, you know that there are other things going on that you aren't supposed to pay attention to.
Right.
And in the book, we write about we really have executive amnesty. Amnesty is already here. It's here in pieces. It's been with us in our face since a year ago, June. Prior to that, Department of Homeland Security, immigration, because that falls under Homeland Security now. They implemented something called prosecutorial discretion. And the word discretion tells it all. It's up to the immigration courts, the immigration agents, the Department of Homeland Security to decide. You'll pick and choose the winners. Who is going to have amnesty? Who is going to be prosecuted for being here illegally in this country? But in June of last year, we have something called the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And probably you're aware that the DREAM Act failed. I don't know. I've seen as many as 30 times that the DREAM Act never could make its way through Congress. And regardless if we had Congress controlled by Democrats or controlled by Republicans, the DREAM Act never made it through. Well, this is kind of DREAM Act light. It's not as full of different provisions as the DREAM Act itself, but the DACA, as this is known, people have been under the misbelief that Barack Obama signed an executive order and it's a matter of the law until, of course, another president could come along, could draw up another executive order that would overrule it, override it, or even dismisses it. But this is not an executive order. It was not issued by the White House. It is a policy memorandum that was issued by then Department of Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano. So we don't even have something that comes out of the White House now that is determining immigration policy regarding deporting illegal immigrants.
It's just mind-boggling. So where is this going to go? I mean, he apparently has bypassed the Constitution to do this, whether it's through a department or executive order. He's getting it done, and the people have no say in it.
Exactly, and this DACA, as does the DREAM Act, would apply to young people under the age of 31, if you're still a young person at 30. Under the age of 31, brought here to this country illegally against their will, who are illegal immigrants themselves, whether brought as children or not, again, under the age of 31. And you have to read the whole act. We discuss it in detail in the book, and it is very complex, all of the things that are allowed. Last week, we have an addition to this, that if you are a caretaker for one of these children now, if you are the responsible party for one of these children now, well, guess what? You're not going to be deported either. So bit by bit, adding one element after another, we have amnesty.
Yeah. And as we head towards 2014, do you think there is one last move from this White House that could create blanket amnesty?
I think that we're probably going to have more of these little bits and pieces that add on. We're going to go way beyond the DREAM Act because now it's going to be you, the dreamer, and your family, your household family, because you're dependent on them to take care of you. Then it's going to be, we're already finding illegal immigrants coming to the border and turning themselves in at border stations, turning themselves in the hopes that once they're inside the country, they will be able to benefit from these new programs. It's crazy. Another program that people don't know about is that it's basically a catch and release program. Illegal criminal immigrants that are held and for whatever reason are not going to be prosecuted, or they have not been tried within a certain length of time. Instead of taking them to the Mexican border and releasing them back into Mexico from where they came, we're now picking them up. So if you're released in California, you're going to be released on the Texas border.
Wow.
This is insanity that they believe that this is going to keep people from getting right back to their connections before they came across the border. It's going to cut down on drugs or whatever. But that's crazy. I-10 runs east-west. It doesn't take much effort to get from California to Texas.
All right, let me move on to some other issues. We'll have to take a break here in a couple of seconds, but I want to move on to some other issues. And, of course, Obamacare is one of the big ones, and that's what pretty much created the turnover in Congress in 2010, the people pushing back on Obamacare. And the numbers, at least some of the surveys, show that a vast majority of Americans do not want this, and it's being shoved down our throat. The big issue now is to whether or not it's going to be defunded. But is or was Obamacare constitutional?
No.
That's the simple answer.
That's the short answer, because Obamacare was not launched in the House of Representatives, and anything regarding funds and taxes does not come out of the House. I keep being told by callers on other shows that I have been on that, the Supreme Court says it's legal. No, the Supreme Court said it's a tax.
Yeah.
And there is no member of Congress with half a brain that would have tried to push this through the House or the Senate if it was a major tax. They would never have tried it. Now that it is a tax, it should be deemed unconstitutional and illegal, just as the Democrats deemed it to be legal in the beginning.
All right, let me do a quick break here. I guess the comment there, taxation without representation, and whether or not it's going to be defunded. Brenda, hold on. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Brenda Elliott. And again, the book is entitled Impeachable Offenses in the Case of Removing President Barack Obama from Office. Picture there on the screen for those watching on theDove TV. And we have with us co-author Brenda Elliott. We'll be right back. Well, we're back, and our special guest is Brenda Elliott. She's the co-author, along with Aaron Klein, of Impeachable Offenses, the case for removing Barack Obama from office. And you may want to check it out. It's put about by WorldNet Daily Books. And check it out at Amazon or at Barnes & Noble. Brenda, this is so fascinating. I could probably have you for a couple of hours, but I do want to kind of highlight some points here. It appears in the broad spectrum of things, the president has clearly abused powers. And you have every member of Congress swearing to uphold the Constitution of the United States. Where is the fortitude to stand on the side of the Constitution to push back on what he's doing, because he's setting a whole new precedence?
Well, there isn't much of a pushback. We have 2 or 3 congressmen that have recently spoke up about impeachment. And I just saw as recently as, I think it was this morning, that one of them is sticking by his guns. And Bentivolio, I believe is how you pronounce his name. I don't want to massacre it, but I believe he's from Michigan, which is very interesting because Michigan's just about as far left as you can go as a state.
Right.
He's the one that famously said that this is impeachment would be a dream come true, and he was apparently asked again this weekend, and he says, well, he sticks by what he said. The problem is we have a lot of these folks in Congress that aspire to be president. And no sitting president or newly elected president has ever stood before Congress and the American people and said, hey, you know what? I've got too much power. I'm going to get rid of some of this.
Yeah.
Barack Obama came in, slamming George W. Bush for all of the things that he had done about executive orders and Pfizer and going to Iraq and any number of other things. And basically was saying to the American people, oh, no, I'll never do these things. These are not things I would even think about doing.
Yeah. And look where
but
we are
yet
today.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Libya is on the war in Libya is another one we can add to the list of going into and destroying a country's sitting government. Now he's trying to twist everybody in the wind to find a way to go into Syria. He's got the usual rhino suspects helping him out. But no president, anyone aspiring to be president, is going to be cautious about saying too much because the reality does exist with some of these folks that they're going to want that power, or they think they might need these powers, and they're going to have to walk a fine line here of complaining too much and then facing the campaign trail for a midterm or facing the campaign trail to run for president and have things they have said haunt them.
Well, yeah, we could talk a lot about that. Let me just kind of move on a little bit for the sake of time. It appears that this whole issue in Syria now creates, ironically and sadly, a perfect storm for him to hide behind and get the attention off of Benghazi, which we know is a huge scandal. The quote of the day is, somebody said it would be nice if the president was more concerned about the American lives in Benghazi than the Syrians' lives lost in Syria. And that's not to minimize what has happened there, but to put it into perspective. So this does create a storm for him to hide behind. But how bad, from your research, was Benghazi and remains to be?
Oh, Benghazi is... the things that we do know are bad. The things that we don't know probably are worse. This was a horrible operation. It was gun running. It was fast and furious, running guns into, putting guns in the hands of criminals in Mexico on steroids. Benghazi, we were running guns that nobody has a tally. We recently were told, I think last week or so, that 400 rocket launchers or some missiles of some type are among the missing. Well, how many more guns are among the missing?
Right.
This was a covert operation being run out of Benghazi. They've called it a consulate. They've called it a lot of different things. It was a CIA operation, special mission. That's what the communiques tell us that they were calling it. The ambassador and other people that were dealing with Benghazi kept asking for more help, and then just the opposite happened. support was being pulled away. The lie was floated that Hillary Clinton wanted to turn it into a permanent facility, and nothing could be further than the truth because the communiques say a totally different story. So we have lies upon lies, and it's one great big mess, and hopefully somebody in Congress will persevere to unravel this.
Well, you know, it's so interesting, and I realize that the president's abuse of powers is certainly an impeachable offense. On the other hand, we have an attorney general that's going to go after a state and sue a state over, voter registration. When you got these scandals going on with Benghazi and IRS, I mean, why can't we at least get the attorney general replaced?
Oh, that's never going to happen because that's the attorney general is what protects Barack Obama from all comers. Without Holder and his various ways of shutting people up or hiding information, it was the same thing with Fast and Furious. Holder covered up Fast and Furious. He's the go-to guy.
All right. So what damage has the president done by setting all of this precedence and basically governing through executive order and other sneaky ways? What precedence has he set now for the United States, and can we, the people, recover from this?
I think I have a family member that keeps saying it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better because it's going to take some... it's going to take something really big to wake up enough of our Congress critters who are going to be willing to put their foot down and say no more, no further. This is Alinsky on steroids. I mean, even Saul Alinsky would be amazed at how brazen Barack Obama has been using all of the tools of community organizing that he learned in New York and then when he went to Chicago. I don't know where this ends. I honestly don't. All I know at this point is Aaron and my co-author and I, Aaron Klein, we're working our hardest to try to keep up with what's going on.
Yeah.
We could have written an encyclopedia instead of just one book because there is so much that has happened.
Well, it appears that this president is more Muslim Brotherhood sympathetic than he is pure American and even Christian sympathetic. And what are we to do with this? I mean, and Syria provides, it's just an incredible mess where you got Muslim against Muslim, and he's going to get in the middle of that, which basically is no winners. But he does seem to favor that philosophy more than the pure American philosophy.
Well, and that is true. Ever since he first went to Chicago, his part of his support, his base of supporters there, were the Nation of Islam and other Muslims in Chicago. Tony Rezko, I just repeated an article on my blog the other day that I essentially wrote spring and summer of 2008 about the connections of Tony Rezko, who is from Syria. Tony Rezko and all the other members of the Middle Eastern group there in Chicago that Obama has been affiliated with for now decades.
Wow. Yeah, I think we just have a hard time admitting that, but the evidence is there, and why we don't admit it is a real mystery to me. And yet, on the other hand, Brenda, it appears at this moment that the Speaker of the House is somewhat complicit on all of this because the people that came in the office in 2010 were clearly against the Obama agenda and certainly against Obamacare, but somehow he's been able to manage them into silence and not allow them to force the House in to challenge the president. And why this Speaker isn't throwing law after the president, knowing that he's going to veto him, but at least caging him in the corner, is beyond me. So I guess Republicans are as much as the problem as the president is.
Oh, I agree with that completely. Just to clear the air, Aaron and I are often accused of being partisan. Nothing could be any further than the truth. Both of us, for several years, documented and attacked George W. Bush just as heavily. The Republicans bear a lot of responsibility.
Well, why not the pushback in the House when they got the power and the votes now?
I have no idea, honestly.
Isn't that sad?
It is sad. And I know it's got to be frustrating for people. we look at go back to Obamacare just for a second, where only 26 states have set up exchanges to handle that part of Obamacare, and those states who are not voluntarily doing this are going to have exchanges imposed upon them. Well, that violates all of those states' rights to their own self-determination about things, whether it's Obamacare or other things.
Charles Krauthammer, over the weekend, when the president came out and gave his announcement Saturday that he would wait for approval from Congress, Charles Krauthammer summed it up and said amateur hour, which is an incredible criticism against the administration. But do you think the president possibly could be facing an embarrassment with the congressional response to his request, much like Cameron did with the Parliament?
Well, in a conversation this morning, it was brought up that perhaps the meeting with McCain and whatever they will be going back to Congress and offering some kind of a compromise instead of just give more support. I'm putting that in quotation marks. More support to the rebels, which means we're just going to support Al-Qaeda.
Right. That's so mind-boggling to me because there just doesn't seem to be any winners with this Syria deal. If we go in, we're eventually going to tip the scale one way or the other. But here we go. It appears that the president wants to go at it alone, but it's possible that the Congress may say no on this one.
It is possible. And then we have to watch out for where the end runs come in. They'll be, just like any other, anything that President Obama wants, we've got to watch out for, what is he going to do to get around Congress?
Well, Brenda, you're a delight. Best to you and Aaron. Keep up the good work. The copy of the book is entitled Impeachment Offenses. Check it out, Aaron Klein and Brenda Elliott. And I'm sure there's going to be a follow-up to this information. Stay at it. Stay true. Don't let it get to you.
Thank you.
Okay, see you, Brenda. And we'll see you next time on Focus Today.